What if you could take that risk, make that change, reach that goal, live your best life? Welcome to another episode of the What If You Could podcast, where we get together with amazing experts and everyday people who share challenges, encourage healing, and explore the possibilities that life has to offer. I'm your host, Gary Scott, and I'm excited that you're along for the ride. Hey, everybody. Welcome to another episode of the What If You Could podcast. And today, my wonderful guest is Arlene Cohen Miller. Hello, Arlene.
Hello.
How are you?
I am great. How are you?
I'm sensational. We're going to have some fun. You're going to help people, you're going to heal people, and by the end of this, we're all just going to do a worldwide meditation and hum. I love
Okay, that sounds great.
it. Let's do it. So I'm going to read your introduction real quick and we'll get cooking.
Okay.
Awesome. Everybody, we have Arlene Cohen Miller brings a wealth of training and experience to help you compassionately and wholeheartedly lead yourself and create the life that works and feels right for you. A life where you experience less stress and more patience, kindness, and peace. A life where you experience more contentment and joy. Arlene is a work life balance coach and a professional certified coach with the International Coaching Federation. Arlene is also a Colorado attorney, a certified meditation facilitator, and has a diploma in transformational holistic counseling from Australia. So, welcome again, Ms. Arlene Cohen Miller. Hello, 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 hello. I'm sorry I rolled my eyes on the attorney thing. It just was all incongruent. It's
I
hard to
know I'm
have
always
patience.
incongruent.
It's
That's
hard to
that's
have
what
patience, kindness, and peace when you talk about attorneys. That's all. It's just hard.
well, I'm a little bit of an anomaly, but that's okay. It can actually go together quite nicely. It just doesn't make sense to most people.
I love it. I love it. Well, I know a lot of attorneys, and I actually know one good one. So you might be number two. Let's make you number two on the list of attorneys. But so since we are the What If You Could podcast, I always just ask my guests out the gate. I just have one question. And do you have a what if you could moment? There was a what if you could thought in your life at one point, what if I could do this or what if I could do that? Or maybe one's still coming. You have one for us?
I guess the biggest what I had a what if could I could moment when I graduated from college before I went to law school. And I was a little bit of a coward because not many people did it back then, but I it's like what if I could get a Euro pass and travel through Europe for a year before I went to law school and get a deferment. And I think that's the only thing I really regret that I didn't do in my life. My father would have been very upset. He was upset that I was even thinking about at one time going to California for undergraduate. He's like, "Why do you want to go away so far?" So I think he would have had a little bit of a fit. And so I sort of backed out of that. But that would have been a cool thing to do. And maybe I will do that one day. I won't do it staying in the youth hospitals anymore. I think I'm beyond that. But it did feel like something that could have been something cool to do.
Well, isn't that a thing where like you do a gap year, like after high school, you just goof off for a year and then go into college? Is that a thing? A gap year?
I wasn't into that. I guess some people do that. I wanted to gap year between college and law school because I was tired of studying and the whole academic thing. And I just like, there's got to be more to the world than this. But I mean, I got to travel and do a lot of things after, I got my law degree. So it's not all wasted. Just it's different when you're older than when you're just a kid.
Yeah, everything is. I mean, I ended up with not a gap year, but a gap life. So I have a gap life. I'm still waiting to grow up and then like start doing what I was supposed to do. I just haven't done it yet, but but I'll figure it out. But you know, the one thing about travel is, you meet so many different people, and it's interesting when you go into places in other countries and you could sit in a bar, sit in a restaurant, and get into a conversation with people. And it's very fascinating. We've lost that in America, the ability to kind of sit down and just chat with a stranger and do that. And I think maybe that's where your work comes in, right? I mean, helping us to kind of all just take a step back from all this stress and anger and weirdness in the world and find peace so we can all get along, huh?
Well, that would be a good idea. I mean, there are a lot of separation energies out there, and a lot of things that are like advertised or on the news that are constantly about, causing people to find the differences in one another. It's a lot healthier to look at the similarities. I mean, we have a lot more similarities than differences, and it's really, a choice that we make. But a lot of that separation, that difference, is just sort of pounded into you, especially if you watch like the regular corporate news and don't check out any of the alternatives. So it's a shame, and hopefully, that some of us can help to model that and turn that around a little bit.
Well, that's what you're here for. You're gonna help save us. You're gonna help fix us. And I kid you about being an attorney. Like I said, I do actually know one good one. But so how did you transition from being an attorney? What type of attorney were you? Are you?
Well, I'm not practicing anymore. I'm still licensed in Colorado, but the first 12 years I was a family law attorney, a domestic relations attorney. So I did divorce. I know it's what started when I got out of law school at 25, and the attorneys that I worked for were doing all that. And then when I opened my own practice at 29, that I was doing that plus some other kind of law. But yeah, I wasn't prepared. I just came from a nice middle class family in Louisville, Kentucky, and I didn't really have the tools and skills to deal with all the craziness of the court system and the projections and the people at their worst, and how parents would put their kids between them, and and you just wanted to strangle them. And then, of course, there was I was appointed by the court to represent kids, where there was alcohol or abuse, some sort of drug abuse by one or both parents, and what's going to happen to them because they're getting divorced. So that was really hard. And then after 12 years, I was like, I can't do this anymore. And it was really interesting. I started off in this cute little law practice in Lakewood, Ohio, which is on the west side of the Cuyahoga River, just a little small kind of town. It was the energy was very similar to Louisville, Kentucky, where I grew up. And there were two other attorneys, different kind of practices than me, and one employment agency. And this really cool guy moved in, and he sold collection packages to businesses, and he needed an attorney to represent those businesses if they wanted to go to litigation. And so I started doing that. I actually loved it because I think people deserve to be paid.
Yeah.
And so after 12 years, I switched over to being a commercial collection attorney.
So, all right, okay, we still like you. Now, everyone just step back. She wasn't actually calling your house at 9 o'clock at night yelling at
No,
you.
that's
It
a
was
retail attorney. I was helping businesses who provided products and services to get paid by other businesses for the money that was owed.
everyone should be paid for their services.
I
If you
agree.
agree to
And
make a contract and pay it, you better pay it. I've been a real
of
estate
course
broker for
well,
35
yeah, there
years.
are situations where,
Yeah.
people mess up and they shouldn't have to pay, but most of the time that's not the case.
Yeah. So the the family law is really tough. I mean,
It is.
I have a family member who started in that himself, and representing the children. They have to assign someone. A lot of times in the court, they give the child gets an attorney because the parents are so screwed up, right? And
Yeah.
it just. I mean, he's a tough guy and a real mean human, and it just wore him out. It was tough, and then a really close friend of mine worked for Child Protective Services, and she was the one who got called, at midnight or 2 a.m. or 3 a.m. to go to the house and get the kids because, something crazy is going on. I give you a lot of credit, kiddo. That was a hard gig.
It was a hard gig, and I really didn't know I didn't know what I was getting into. I sort of did, because like one of the first things I witnessed was when I was still just an associate for an attorney that was doing both collection law and divorce. He got a client that was coming in for the third time to get divorced, and he made some sort of wager with her because her husband was a cop, and he pulled a gun on her a couple of times, and he was saying, you're gonna back down like this, like you always do. No, and she did, and I was like, like a deer in the headlights. I was I was still 25 or 26, and I hadn't seen much of the world, and it was a very rude awakening. It's like, wow, this is a really a different way to live.
I'm just a small town kid from Kentucky for crying out loud. This isn't supposed to be going on. That's crazy.
Yeah,
but I can imagine that would help build, your empathy for, what you're doing now with the coaching and the training. Like, like it states, the patience, kindness, peace. Don't we just need to be nicer to ourselves? I mean, don't we need to just be gentler with ourselves? We just constantly beat ourselves up, don't we?
we do. A lot of people do. I did when I was younger. And a lot of us just have a really strong inner critic. And if you're one of those kind of women I was talking about, your sense of worthiness is almost zero or less than zero. So it's really about helping people to be aware of their inner critic, learn how to be their inner coach, learn how to set clear, strong, and appropriate boundaries, and have someone work with them who can model that kindness, patience, and tolerance so they can begin to know that it's available for them. It is not an easy, let's snap our fingers and jump in the transition, because that's all a lot of people have ever known. And so, hurt people. A lot of the times they're raised by people that were dysfunctional as well, and so those of us who choose to can help model a different way, and to help if the people that are interested to experience a different way. And oftentimes I just look at myself as a seed planter. I'm planting a seed for someone for a future moment, because they want it, but they're just not ready to do the work and take the step.
Mhm. When you were seeing the worst of it, when you're seeing the children and, being a kind of a tool for the parents, I mean, they don't really want to be doing that. Everyone loves their child very deeply. They're just wounded people, and so as you're going through that and you're working within that system, speaking of little Johnny Appleseed, you are, um, is that when maybe that seed started kind of sprouting inside you? Like, I think I need to be on the other side of this. I think I need to be trying to heal people more than get in the middle of these battles.
Not really. I guess what started me kind of on a healing journey is I got divorced. Well, my divorce started when my son was 2, and the divorce was final when he was 3. And when we were going through that whole process, he didn't understand, at that age really what was going on, to be able to verbalize it, but he could feel it. And he developed I think it's genetic. I think I'm genetically predisposed. I just don't have it full force, but he developed really bad ADHD. And so I went on this journey as his mom, because his dad is a doctor and kind of a workaholic, and just to see what I could do to help him, and in the process, went on a healing journey myself. I studied all sorts of healing modalities. I was looking for, eventually we had to put him on some, Adderall and stuff like that. I didn't want to do that, but it was just necessary. And but I was working with all different kind of healing modalities that could help him just to, you know, be in his body more and not feel so frenetic and stuff like that. So yeah, that's when I got interested in all that kind of stuff, because, I wanted to help him.
Yeah. Yeah, I interviewed a guy who's 84 and he didn't find out he was ADHD until he was like 68 years old. And he lived his
Wow.
life just going, something's off. He's hugely successful man, multiple corporations, very wealthy. At 84, he's like this real fitness guy. Um, but yeah, it changed his life when he got that diagnosis at 68. Because then now he was like, oh wow, there's an actual answer for why I've been like I've been. Um, and we kind of went into it, and we both kind of felt I I have a number of ADHD members in my family. Kind of went into it like a lot of people with the ADHD syndrome issue that they have are actually really successful people. If they can steer it, if they can kind of control it, they've kind of got an extra level of superpowers that those
They
of us
do.
don't have, right?
My son does. And it took a while for me to help him discover it, but he's very successful.
Mhm. And do you work with that at all in your training, in your counseling at all?
I'm not really a trained, I can't counsel people. I did it, I got the counseling and the coaching when I was an attorney and the meditation certification because I knew that I really wasn't trained to listen at all as an attorney. I was trained to win cases. And so I knew that I really could use that skill, as a mother, as with my business partner, as an employer, with my son, with anyone I was dealing with, because I did a lot of the marketing for the law firm, and so it really did help with all that. And then I just sort of was ready to get out of the law, but um, so my diploma in transformational holistic counseling is from Australia. In order to use it in the United States, I'd have to get my master's,
Hmm.
and that's not going to happen. I've gone to university, I've gone to law school, I've got all these other diplomas. I don't mind reading books and stuff like that, but I'm not going to go back and get my master's in counseling. That's no.
Yeah, no, I don't blame you. So what work do you do with people when you're talking about taking people and helping them with release, get less stress, more patience, more kindness and peace, find a life work balance? How are you working with people in that sense?
Well, it really depends on whether they want to be coached or they want to be mentored. Because if I'm coaching them from the coaching perspective, they have all the answers inside of them. So now I'm going to be asking them powerful questions. I'm going to be sharing my intuitions and reflecting back what I'm seeing and noticing, and but always handing it back to them to see what they want to do with it. It's a really great way to work because people do have the answers inside of them. And I don't know about you, but I'm not really that keen about people saying this and this and this is wrong with you, and you should do this, this, and this. And so most people, when they have that aha moment and we help them to ground it and actualize it in their life, they're much more likely to apply it and to make it real for them and to have a different experience. Now, some people, I do mentor, that kind of transformational mentoring, just to help people to stand on my shoulders, and I'll give them tasks and things to do, and they'll come back and see how it goes. And so that's more of an experiential kind of learning experience. So it's really whatever works for the people. And some people that come to me, they kind of like to swing between the both of them, or maybe even have a session or two where we're just working with some very simple breath work and meditation techniques that they can use in their life, um, because they get wound up and they sort of go off, and it takes a while to come back, and they want to be able to handle it in the moment.
So how do you find the people who come to you? Where are they kind of in a place in their life where it's like when they feel like they want to reach out and get, like you said, either coaching, you know, um, mentoring, where are they in their life that they choose now it's time to reach out to someone like Arlene Cohen Miller? What do you find is your most common kind of person?
I don't know. Or do you have a common kind of person that you talk to anymore? I don't know if there's a common kind of person. But a lot of people just in the world that it is today, like when I was growing up, my mother had the opportunity. She chose to stay at home. Her parents, she was pretty poor growing up. Both had to work to put food on the table, and she was really grateful to be able to stay at home. She still did a lot of stuff in my dad's business and for the finances for the family, but most couples, they don't have that option. So you're having both parents working, if you're in a relationship and they have kids, or if they're not married and they still have other obligations that they're involved with. And so and then with everything that happens in the world, we're kind of bombarded with having, I didn't grow up with the internet. So, my mom said, go out and play and be home by dinner and take your dog with you. So it was a whole different world. And it's not like that. My grandkids, well, especially the oldest one, she's on the computer a lot, or her cell phone a lot. And it's just a whole different world. And I think that really stresses people out, all that instant stuff and not having any of that downtime. And some people don't know how to make that space in their lives, or they feel guilty or selfish about taking that time for themselves. And so that's kind of what's going on with a lot of people, or they're just maybe they're burnt out with their work and they're stressed out and they don't know, maybe they have a job where they're remote still from, the after COVID, they stayed remote. A lot of people in IT are like that. And, they're afraid to leave the computer because people are always calling, and they want to keep their job and they want to get promotions and all that kind of stuff. So there's all kinds of additional stress out there that people are under. and they really, they read books or they watch a video, but they really need help and guidance to apply it in their lives and to have someone to help them be accountable. I'm not going to be accountable for anybody. They have to do it for themselves, but oftentimes it helps to have someone there who is going, well, how did you go since the last time we've been together?
Yeah. I've done so much coaching and self-help stuff and training and stuff. And the one that, we always do is the wheel, do spirituality, finances, health, relationships, and do the spokes of the wheel and write something on it. And then you grade it, like finances 2, health 3, family 7. And, your wheel is supposed to be nice and round so that it rolls real well. But most of us would just go clunk, 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 clunk because we're so. My wheel will not roll. All right, Arlene, I'm just telling you right now, my wheel will not roll. So, when you're talking about that, it really is tough to have even one thing going right nowadays, let alone to have, everything kind of working well. So I'm sure when
Well,
people come to you, they're like,
Well, I'm a work-life balance and harmony coach because work-life balance, everyone knows what it is, but if you have those scales of justice, I mean, nothing is, the problem is that we have a lot of things inside of ourselves that say that it's not okay to make a mistake and we have to be perfect all the time. Well, if you reframe that mistakes are opportunities to learn and grow, and that nobody is perfect, and everything in my life I can use it as a learning experience so that I can be, a little bit better every day. And and it's never going to be a perfect balance because I have to learn to be more flexible and adaptable with what's happening in my life. And we take away a lot of those expectations and stress that we take on maybe from our parents or from our peers or from society or whatever it is, or from TikTok, who knows? But we have to be given sometimes permission just to say, I've had enough. I'm not doing that anymore. And get out in nature more, do something that can really help us feel more connected.
it seems to me that the gals really got screwed on this deal because we go, hey, let's do women's liberation. Woohoo, let's get all the women out working. You guys burn your bras and march and let's get y'all a job, right? Put you in the workforce, be independent. But you're still going to be mom and have all the other stuff. So basically, we're just giving you a second job and you're still stuck with the first job and men still only have the one job and it's like mom gets up, takes care of the family, takes care of the husband, boots him out, then she goes to work and then he comes home and plops in front of the TV, watches ESPN, and then she's making dinner, she's helping with the homework, she's doing the laundry, she had just got back putting the groceries away. And it's like, wait a minute. This was not the deal. I didn't sign up for this, right? So, I mean,
Yeah.
it's just a fact of life right now. So, how does someone come to you and say, with that type of, thing on their plate, I want life, work-life balance? It's like, dude, get rid of your husband and quit your job. I mean, how do you find it?
Um, People don't usually come to me with that extreme of a case. And I don't know, as far as I think maybe the women's movement got a little bit hijacked, but the ideas were pretty good. I mean, it wasn't too long ago before we couldn't vote. We couldn't own property. We couldn't open a bank account without our husband signing on it. I mean, some of those basic things of, equality, men and my ideal vision is men and women walking hand in hand as equals. Whether you're married or not, it doesn't matter, but it's not that way in the world right now. It's very true. But I've never had a client come to me with all of that on the table at once. Most people come and their home life is going all right. And they're just, maybe they're being more of a doormat and a people pleaser at work, or vice versa. It's usually not the whole kit and caboodle that's a mess. So just if they get one part of the life straightened up a little bit more, it's going to alleviate a lot of stress, and they're going to have more of an ability to enjoy their life. And I can't sprinkle magic fairy dust over their life any more than I can sprinkle it over mine. And we have to sort of accept things the way they are, and then where to from here. And I always really believe in, you know we need to celebrate and acknowledge every little small step that we take forward along the way. It's not the book that we wrote or we got on stage, but it might be that I I wrote a letter that I didn't want to write today, or I made a phone call I didn't want to write, or I had a really nice conversation with someone that was really heartfelt, or I just had this moment, or for me, I go to my yoga school and I have a few conversations with my friends and I just let go of a ton of stress. So, I mean, hopefully no one has everything wrong in their life when they come to me. And there's this thing that's at the top of the heap, and this is what I want to work on first.
Yeah. And so how do you walk people through that? So they come to you and maybe they think their whole world's on fire, their hair's on fire when they walk in and I'm sorry I'm late for my appointment and whatever, or you probably I'm sure Zoom, we all do Zoom stuff and things like that. So they do come, I'm sure people come to you a little bit hectic because they are working for that balance. Um, is there analysis that you do to go sit down, let's walk through, let me ask some questions and figure out where the weaknesses are, or where the strengths are, or where can we kind of make things
I'm
better?
Well, as an attorney, I was a pretty much a head case, and I don't do that anymore. I'm more, I try to be more balanced from the heart. And so I guess one of the beautiful things I really learned from coaching and mentoring is how to like hold a really big judgment-free space of unconditional positive regard. It's really just unconditional love. So I'm holding a space of love that doesn't have any conditions on them. I'm not asking anything from them. I'm just holding the space. And most people, what they really need is someone to listen to them. Because most people, when we have conversations, all we're doing is thinking about what we're going to say or how we're going to one up whatever they're saying. And that isn't happening in coaching and counseling that I know of. We're actually giving them the space to breathe, to be themselves, to share what they need to share, to suss out really what they want to focus on, where they want to be by the end of our time together, what they think they need to look at. And it's just a really powerful process when you're working with coaching like that, because it's transformational, because people are instead of in this contracted space, they're being given permission to be in this huge expansive space. And the other thing that I think a lot of coaches and mentors and counselors do, that I do, is that if you come to my session, I'm not looking at you by what you shared with me last week or what you gave to me in the intake form. I'm greeting you anew. How are you in this now moment? And that's really powerful too, because most of the time we don't do that. So if I've met you 3 or 4 times and I'm meeting you by how you were the first 2 times, that puts you in a box. How can you change and evolve and grow if you're being put in a box? So you can feel when someone that does that to you, it's really horrible. It's like, please don't do that. My grandmother sort of did that to me, my mother's mother, well, in her own kind of way, but it was by her job was to worry about me. It's like, Grandma, please don't do that. Um, so I mean, it's more of a feeling, it's more of a holding space process and knowing how to be a coach to help people to have realizations and then to ground and actualize them, than coming in with some sort of pre-planned idea.
Well, I like the thought of that because there's something about the world that we're in. Although we're massively exposed, right? I mean, we're on the Twitter thing and the TikTok thing and all the things. Yet we're not seen, right? I mean, we're projecting something, but we're not seen. And what you said there, I liked. You're like, I'm seeing you in the moment right now without judgment, with nothing from your past, nothing from your present. Let's just get clear now so we can start trying to find that peace and find that space and find that acceptance that you're looking for. I mean, is that kind of what you're doing? Is trying to get these people just to take I love the word breath, and I think you even do breath work, right? Do you do some breath
Yeah,
work
I
too?
do. I do help people with breath work, just because it helps you physiologically go from fight or flight to rest and relax mode. It's easy to do. We all have to breathe. We can learn some simple breath work techniques and just calm ourselves right down. And we can do it when no one even notices, because one is like just breathing in through your nose and out through your nose. And when the out breath is longer than the in breath, and you do it for a while, it just really can settle you down, especially if you really feel grounded in your body and kind of like anchored into the planet. So yeah, breath work is great. And yeah, I mean, it's a kind of a description of what I do. And I guess what I bring to the table is that I don't have any expectation of what where they're going to get by the end of our time together. You know, I know that wherever they get is going to be perfect for them. And I know that a lot of my journey is that, I'll have mentors or coaches or counselors that I've worked with along the way, maybe say something to me. I don't know how many times. It can be kind of embarrassing, 50 or 100 times. And the 101st time, I get it. It's like, whoa, the penny actually drops. I understand what they're saying. It's not from my head, it's from my heart. And so I want to give that to other people. They might get something straight away and it might be 15 sessions down the road. And I can't judge them for it because if I look at my life and I judge them, I'm like, what does that say about me? So it's important to, be able to model that and put everything to one side. I call it like putting all of my stuff on a shelf. Anything that's going on in my life that I need to work with, we're all works in progress. It's on the shelf when I'm doing coaching or mentoring or meditation. It's not a part of it's not a part of that scene.
I would imagine on your first gig when you were doing the family work, um, that had to be sucking your soul to death. I mean, that just had to be such a draining sort of thing to go through all the time. That type of negativity and all the things that are going on with that. When you're doing with this, do you find sometimes it can just be sucking too much out of you? You need to step back, or is it not that type of work where people are unloading on you and venting you? It's more of a give and take sort of thing, or more of it's an open thing. It's not as where people just are coming unloading on you. Do you have that sometimes? You're like, oh man, this is just sucking the life out of me.
Well, it's up to me to have clear, strong, and appropriate boundaries. And I know how to do that energetically now. So it's not just this is my boundary, and if you cross over it, I'm out of here. But it's really important to because sometimes someone will sort of like lean in and they're kind of want your energy if you have a more positive energy than they do. And sometimes I'm really fooled by it. Then I sort of have to cleanse and clear my energy field. But I always have like this big, beautiful golden bubble of protection around me. And I do, if someone tries, I always return energy that's not of me and not about love back to where it belongs, back to its original source. I just send it back because anytime you have someone thinks about you, you think about them, you have a conversation, you watch the news, you go someplace, you get connected to all these things. So it's important to cut those energetic connections that are not about love and know how to engage in self-care activities that fill ourselves up with love so we're not looking for it from other people. And I mean, that's some of the stuff that I learned when I went on this healing journey that I got kickstarted with my son, is that how to energetically set those clear, strong, and appropriate boundaries because some people are not even aware of what's going on. They're so upset, they're so depleted, they just want someone to fix them, they just want to feel better that they'll engage in those kind of activities, and that's just not okay with me. So I can, and the thing that's really cool is that I can hold a space of compassion and love and kindness for someone and they can feel that, but I am still not going to let them dump their stuff in my energy field. I can't be as good of a coach or mentor. They might feel better for a moment, but it's only going to be like pumping up a flat tire and it's going to go back down again. So I guess that's the short version of how I handle that.
I like short versions and long versions. I got a little Russian in me, so I like long stories.
Me
But
too.
do you really?
My whole genetic line is Russian.
Oh,
So
wow.
I
Yeah.
think like 98% my son got tested, and since I birthed him, I must be right in there too. So
Oh, right on. Well, we've got that connection there. Yeah, my family's got that from back there. But yeah, I mean, it's just so important to protect yourself, and a lot of people just like to dump on you because that's just what they think is going to make them feel better. But like you said, it's just pumping up a tire that's just going to go flat again. It's like if we don't work on real healing, if we don't start kind of getting into work that's going to help get you why you came here, what you want, it's not going to matter. You can't just show up every week and just dump on me and then leave because that's not getting us anywhere, right? And so, you talk about pouring love into people and giving people the space and giving people boundaries and helping people kind of find their center a little bit. Um, how many people do you just have to get rid of? Just go, dude, I can't. No, you're a mess. I can't help you.
Well, there are specific guidelines for coaches. If someone comes to me and they need to talk about the past, coaches don't do that. We talk about the present and the future. We can refer to it, but if someone comes to us and it's just you can tell they really need a counselor, that it's we have an ethical duty and responsibility to refer them out and to say, look, and I have a friend, she's a mentor of mine, and he's just a pistol. And he had these great stories. He said, someone came, he does healing work too, and someone came to him and wanted something. He said, I just don't like you. And the guy looked back at him and says, I just don't like you either. And so he said, I think I should refer you on to someone else. And this guy became a referral to him for other clients. And it's hysterical. And I'm like, but he did it with love. There was not a judgmental bone in his body. And I love that story. I don't know if I've ever done that, but I have referred people on.
But you know what? I mean, when you think about that, it's like, do you want to work with someone who is just blowing smoke up your butt, who's going through the motions, who is just, cashing a check, and they honestly don't care? This person actually cared enough to say, dude, I don't really like you, and so because of that, I'm not going to be able to help you. And I want you to find help. I want you to find an answer to what's hurting you. And so let me refer you to someone else. And then the other person's like, thank God, 'cause I don't like you either, right? So I mean,
Yeah.
it was an act of kindness.
It was, but it takes a lot of guts and courage to do that. And I don't think I've ever done that, but I've done it a little bit more diplomatically, because it's right. If there's not that affinity there, there's not that working relationship. It's not going to be good for them or for me. And that is the kind thing to do to refer them on.
Yeah, and we kind of live in that world right now where even family members are counsel canceling other family members. It's like, you don't like what I like, so you're out of here. I'm gonna unfriend you and don't ever call me, and I'm not gonna see you at Thanksgiving either. It's like, what? What did I do? We have a little bit different beliefs, but it's just a confrontational world. But it can be done right. I mean, it can be done in a loving kind of way. But one of the things that you touched on that is making things clear to me now, and I think it's going to help our listeners too, is that you said, you know, you're you're not a psychiatrist or a psychologist, right? You're not going to just sit there and talk about when Buffy died when I was 3 years old, my life has never been the same at 70. So you're more like, look, I want to help you move forward in a positive direction. I want to help you find peace moving forward. I want to help you find work-life balance moving forward. We're not going to concentrate on what happened in the past. The past is past, right? So now I'm starting to get more of a feel for kind of what you're doing with the mentoring and the coaching. Am I more on the right track now?
I would just add one thing. If there's something in your current life where you're having feelings that are unresolved about something in the past, we can deal with how you're feeling now. Because if we feel our feelings, it can be a healing experience. We don't want to just push them away. They'll get stuck in our body and cause disease, or stuck in our mind and cause mental whatever. It's better just to let the stuff be felt, acknowledged, loved, move through. So if they're having actual feelings now, then we'll deal with them. But it can be a real fine line, and we have to be really diligent, as a coach or a mentor, to make sure that we're not stepping over a line that shouldn't be stepped over.
I mean, because you do have to at least have some background on people. You have to have some sort of gauge of what the challenges are so that you can help them move forward, right? I mean, there has to be some sort of looking back or taking a look at where we are as a person in order to help coach them and mentor them to move forward, right?
Well, they can mention the stuff or share that kind of stuff. It's just not going to be our focus. We're not, if they really need to go back and focus on that. And I don't know how helpful all that is all the time, because if you're just going over and over and over things, because the law of attraction is what we focus on, is what we get more of in our lives. And so if we're just focusing on a negative situation that we've rummaged our mind over and over and again, and that's all we're talking about with someone, we're helping to recreate it. I would prefer that, the people that I'm going to work with, My mode of operation is to acknowledge the feelings, work to let those feelings go, maybe replace them with more love, and see where to from here in our conversation. And it takes as long as it takes, but I just feel otherwise that that you can just help to recreate something that you don't want to have.
I agree that. I mean, we do what we focus on usually comes where we kind of just spend our time and in our mind. And, we've all heard all the numbers and the statistics on how many negative things we say to ourselves every day, how much we beat ourselves up, how much we relive the past and go, oh, I can't believe I did that when I was 8 years old. And, or my mom reminds me constantly of what I did when I was 8 years old. And that helps too. And she does. Um, but
Oh
can't
my
help that.
goodness. Families are funny.
Yeah, I just love them all. Nah, not all of them, not my sister. Um, so can you have it, my friend? I mean, can you have work-life balance? Can we have a balanced life where we find all this goodness you're talking about?
Well, that's why I was saying at the beginning of our conversation, I now call it work-life balance and harmony. It sort of goes together. Nothing is ever going to be perfectly balanced. If you have an expectation of that, that's an unrealistic one because we're not perfect. Things are always changing in our world, within us. We need to be flexible and adaptable, but we can orchestrate things in our life and have a new. It's like if you work from the inside out, where our inner coach is now stronger and our boundaries are now stronger, and our self-care and our self-love and taking care of ourselves physically and mentally and emotionally and spiritually are now stronger. We're going to be feel a lot different inside, and that's going to help us to have a more harmonious and balanced life to the extent anybody can. So there's no such thing as a perfect. I don't like to have that vision of the scales of justice, and so the balance and harmony together to me feels much more doable.
Yeah. Well, I love the word harmony. I mean, that in something that I value very much. I mean, because there's peace, there's kindness, there's all these things, but harmony kind of incorporates so many of the things that are so healing to us as a human, and you just find
Yeah.
yourself in harmony with just the planet, with people, with the universe, with everything. Harmony is just such a great word. And I love how you keep coming back to, just being gentle to yourself. I mean, gosh, are we just abuse ourselves nowadays? It's just the most bizarre thing. And you wonder why. I mean, why do we just abuse ourselves like we do? Why do we, why can't we find that harmony?
Well, I guess that's why I really am concerned about the youngest generation with all this stuff on TikTok where you can download all these apps and make yourself look like someone that you don't look like so that you'll be like this perfect thing. And then that's what people see, but no one ever sees you. And what if they do see you and then other people post stuff on there that's not even true that you judge or compare yourself with? That's just not that's not a recipe for love and kindness and patience and having a successful kind of life. And um, you know, so yeah, that's a concern. That is a concern. And I guess why we do it, who knows why humanity does certain things, but we can turn it around because, we created that stuff for ourselves. We created that inner critic, maybe when we were younger, just to survive. And so we don't want to beat ourselves up for it. We did the best we could with what we had when we created that stuff. And so we can begin to turn that ship around and begin to uncreate it. One easy way with the inner coach is like, if we have a dear friend or someone we love and they're telling us all the stuff that we're telling ourselves, what will we tell them? How would we uplift them? How would we maybe challenge them? How would we bring kindness to it? What would we say to them so that they would go, oh, well, that makes sense. And start working more with their own inner coach. Then we just, because we have those skills already, we just feel selfish or guilty or whatever that we can't give it to ourselves. We just turn around and we start practicing giving it to ourselves. And that practice and practice and practice makes permanent, not perfect. It makes permanent.
Practice makes permanent. It does not make
Yes,
perfect. Practice does not make
right.
perfect. The well, I like that kind of switching it around a little bit because so many times it's easier for us to be kind to someone else more than it is to be kind to ourselves or to give to someone else instead of to give to ourselves. For some reason, we seem to be the last Well, there's some people out there who only take and take and take, but it does seem that most people, it's easier to be kind to someone else than kind to yourself. So to flip that around, I think is a great idea as far as
Yeah.
at least baby steps towards, working that muscle of now giving and kindness and consideration and things like that. So maybe you could bring that to yourself.
Yeah, and then we begin to acknowledge ourselves for all those little things we're doing, like I was talking about earlier, and to celebrate them. And that is the foundation of working with the law of attraction and bringing more of that kindness and love and harmony in our lives because we're doing it for all the small stuff every day. And we can begin to feel different.
Well, I mean, there's a certain a huge call for it. I mean, I think that you know, I really worry about this generation right now. It's just so many lost souls out there. I don't know. I don't know what the answer for it is at all. I don't know if it's cutting social media down. I don't know if it's the families getting tighter. I don't know if it's I don't know what I mean. What are the do you work with young people now, or do you kind of mostly just work with adults and older people?
I don't work with young people, but I do have three grandkids, so I do my best to model stuff for them. I guess what I'm really grateful for is that they all have extracurricular activities that make their heart sing.
Mm.
For one of my granddaughters, it's dance. It just lights her up and she loves it. Another one, it's he loves to go with his dad and sing karaoke. And he also is into soccer and his dad is coaching him. The other one is just into all sorts of stuff. But anyway, it as a grandparent, the best that I can do is I mean, I'm always holding them in my love. I tell that to the oldest one who's 15, even though I don't get to see you so much because your schedule is crazy with all your dance stuff. You're always there. I always feel you're there and you're always in my heart. And, you know, I think that hopefully we have more wisdom as a grandparent than I was as a young mother because I didn't know what the heck I was doing then. And there must have been some time back in antiquity before written history where actually the elders raised the kids because I think we're maybe more qualified. But yeah, that's what I think we can. I think every time we do our part in some way, it does make a difference, especially if we go, wow, this is really amazing. We had like some sort of wonderful experience with a young person. And I sort of I feel very strongly that it sort of gets uploaded to the lowest level of the Akashic records where people sort of grab for answers when they're upset. And if we do that and we really love what we're doing and we're like a big, oh my God, this is awesome from our hearts, then when other people have similar experiences or looking to have a similar experience, it's going to be there for them. It's going to be there for the rest of humanity. And that's one of the few things that, we can do here on the ground now, as long as it's sincere and from our heart, not from our head.
Yeah, man, I love being a grandpa. I have a 2-year-old and with 2 and a quarter, whatever. And now my son just had their second baby, so now I'm a double grandpa, and I just love it. I've got this stupid head cold, so I haven't been able to visit the new baby that just popped out a couple of days ago. It's killing me. But um, but yeah, I think when we're working with anyone, whether it's the kids, whether it's a 90-year-old person, it does help if they find something that they like to do that gives them happiness, and if they could focus on that, it's something you can use like, all right, now you know the feeling, and it feels good. Let's work on getting more of that and building on that. Let's build that love, let's build that feeling. And I think one of the things that you talk about that helps do that is setting boundaries. I think boundaries are so important for people as far as keeping them safe, keeping their soul safe.
Yeah.
How do you get people to work on their boundaries?
Well, I guess organically, they'll talk about, how they're being a doormat at work or they don't know how to say no to their boss or they say yes to their kids all the time and they don't set bound, so it comes up organically. I don't get people to do anything. It's the co-creation all the time because I mean, I mean, I know how good I am when people say, um, you have to do this. My hair stands up on my arms. It's like, so it's much more of organic, having realizations and working with people and asking questions. Unless I'm mentoring them, I can give a suggestion, but they still have to want to do it. I can't force them, which is why I talked about being your Johnny Appleseed seed planter. I didn't use that word, but that's fine. So yeah, I really can't make, no one can make us do anything unless we really have that heartfelt desire that we're going to do something with it. It's nice to be with a group of people that want the same thing, and we can all support each other moving forward, so it doesn't get lost in the shuffle of our life. I really believe in that very strongly as well. But that that if I told you to do something and you didn't want to do it, it's not going to happen.
Yeah, you can't force someone to find peace, happiness, and contentment.
No, it doesn't work that way. They have to find it within themselves, but I can help people do that, but they have, it's a process. There's no like little magic fairy dust raining down and all of a sudden we're bright and shiny. It's a process.
Yeah. Do you work with couples, or you just work with single people? Do you find couples that you could help together, or is it mostly just finding a person and trying to heal them, which then goes on and heals the rest of the family?
I don't try to heal anybody. I hold the space so they can heal themselves. I'm not really trained to work with couples, so I don't work with couples. I do facilitate classes, mentoring classes every week that are 6 to 10, 12 people, one in person, one online. And then I do work with people individually most of the time. Sometimes I work with groups. It really depends. Sometimes if there's a business that wants to make some changes inside it's important that we have an affinity to work together. So, it's important that, I mean, we don't want to be a jack of all trades. I couldn't be a jack of all trades and do a good job as an attorney, much less as a coach or a mentor. We really have to have an area that's our expertise, that we really know and that we're really passionate about. Because there's all kinds of coaches out there.
How does it work in a group setting? I mean, how there's a lot of trust involved with that, isn't there? I mean, how does it work when you work with a group setting?
Well, the groups that I've worked with have mostly been like nonprofits, where they have a goal and they're working together and they want to create something new. So I've never really been one of those coaches that goes into a corporate setting with 12 people and people aren't getting along and they need to come up with some new plan. That's been other coaches that I know. So I have more worked with the nonprofits that have a really heartfelt goal, but it needs some tweaking of where we want to go from here. So that's what I've attracted to me to work with. So it hasn't really ever been a drama, because I've had people that love what they do, want to sort of figure out where to from here with the business. And it, it, it's been kind of a smooth
Uh,
ride, maybe a little bit of a roller coaster, but it hasn't been like antagonistic at all.
I can't imagine a big corporation wants you come in and talk to people about work-life balance. They'll be like, "No, we just work. We don't do life, or we don't do balance." So
I don't know. Everyone puts on their pants or their skirts or something the same way every day. Do have that commonality thing that we need a life to not get burnt out. But yeah, that just hasn't been one of my areas of expertise, and that's fine.
yeah, I just think it's so important. I mean, when my first wife was alive, and we I just do this just for fun because I love to meet interesting people like you. But we have a real estate company, and I've been a broker for 35 years. And my wife and I, when she worked with me, she ran the property management division, and I did the listing and sales part. And then when we had the kids, we just brought them in the office, and they just hung around and goofed around. They had their little play area, and we had our real tight unit, and that was our whole focus was family, life, enjoyment, peace, and then work. I mean, we did a good job. You as a realtor, you work 7 days a week. You don't have a day off as a realtor, um, usually. And so, but that was such a big focus for us, and it's just such a lost art. I had a friend of mine. He's just posted on Facebook, "Hey, I was number one agent in my company." And it was pretty awesome because he's a big producer, right? Makes a ton of money. But he's been able to work like 7 months out of the year. It's He just chose to not do the 24/7 grind anymore. Hasn't hurt his income, hasn't hurt his friendships, hasn't hurt his relationship with his clients. He just chose. He makes it known. This is how I'm running things. And it's changed his whole life. Work-life balance is harmony, is a huge thing if people could find it.
Yeah, and that takes courage. A lot of people are afraid, and he wasn't, and that's really cool, and that's great that we have role models of people who've done that. It's
Yeah.
really important.
It's such an important word, what you said. We're always afraid that if I don't work harder, then the person underneath me is going to replace me, or if I'm not working 24/7, they're going to hire another realtor, or, this or that part of that. Um, it's just such a tough thing. You have to really be firm in your convictions and your boundaries and your beliefs to say, this is what I need to do for myself and my family, or just myself. I need to set these boundaries to have this. Courage is a big part of that.
Yeah, and it's interesting when we set those boundaries, um, like you were talking about with you and your wife and your kids, and with your friend who works 7 months a year, we're going to be a much more fulfilled, well-rounded person. And so the person that we bring to our work is going to be someone that is more fulfilled, well-rounded, and wants to be there and actually help the people that they're helping, and not coming from a space of being burnt out or angry or upset that they're there. And if someone doesn't say that, I don't care if you're not an awake person, you feel it. And it's not something that we're attracted to being around. So it actually makes us more attractive to other people if we're holding that space for ourselves and we're giving that to ourselves and the people that we love, because then we're going to be bringing that out to the world.
Yeah. I mean, it's so true. I mean, you get around someone who is overly stressed or someone who just isn't happy. We're all just a little energy ball. We're all just a little energy source, right? And so it's like negative energy is so repelling in so many situations. And if Arlene Cohen Miller can get us to that point of work balance, life harmony, peace, kindness, what a gift, right? I mean, if you can get people there, it's a massive gift, that's for sure.
And I really think that it's not just me. It's always it can be like a community effort. One of my clients was an attorney like me that became a coach. And I think she did executive coaching. And I met her through the reciprocal peer coaching program through the International Coaching Federation, and I coached her. And at the end of our time, she decided that we've been working with gratitude. She wanted to have more gratitude, that she really needed to keep on working with it. And for every day for a whole year, she posted on social media. She picked a platform, either a picture or a piece of artwork or something that she could post, something she was grateful for. And then she would write a little quote there, and I followed her, and a whole bunch of people followed her. And it was an amazing experience. I mean, because I could feel her growth, and she really changed and evolved and just blossomed so much more. And that gratitude really became grounded for her in her life that year. So we never know what we bring, where it's going to take somebody, but I really feel still that it's important to come together in groups, that it's never just like me by myself. That would be really, I'm sorry, that would just be really, arrogant. I was gonna use a cuss word, but I'm like, I can't do that on the show. It'd be really cuss word arrogant for me to think that I'm going to be doing that. It's always a group effort, and it's always like allowing the love to flow through you, that's not even about you, to help other people. And if I thought it was all my stuff, then I would have my head up a dark place.
I love cuss words. They're great for emphasis.
Yeah, I just don't know if it's okay for a podcast, so I'm being very careful.
I think we have a warning on it. I don't know. I've interviewed so many people that I interviewed a gal that I don't think she used a non-cuss word the whole hour. I don't know. It was so much so. It was so funny. She's a she's in the cannabis business, and she yeah, works in a tough business, and just every other, she just dropped every bomb. I just made me laugh the whole time. But yeah, so it does take a community. I think it does take also people being courageous enough to step back and go, enough's enough. I'm not chasing this anymore. Whether it's keeping up with the Joneses, whether it's fighting on social media, whether it's fighting just everything, whether it's, ignoring the kids, whether it's ignoring your spouse. I mean, I think, I do think you have to be selfish. I think you have to be selfish. Like Jim Rohn always says, put your mask on first. If you don't take care of yourself, everything else is going to fall apart. Um, but it does take a community. It doesn't take a lot of effort to be kind. It's pretty simple. And I love what you're doing with your work, and I'm
Well,
I'm
thank you.
hoping that you're finding a lot of people who are going to go ahead and get this balance.
And even if they don't come to me, if they hear different podcasts like this where they feel hope, because hope is a really high vibrational sacred quality. And if you feel hopeful about something, that can really be a game changer. A lot of people just feel dejected and there's no way out. But if you actually have that feeling of hope from watching somebody, there's certain people that I love to watch that bring that to me, or music or whatever. But then that's a gift that we can bring as well.
Yeah, I love that. Well, Arlene, you've been amazing. Thank you so much for your time. I have one last quick question, and I'm going to ask you to let everyone know how to find you and stuff. So, if there was a last message that Arlene Cohen Miller would like to leave with us, something, a saying or something important or a thought, or if there's something that just was like real close to your heart, you'd like to leave with everybody, what would that message be?
I guess I can't even talk. So it's like a trinity, like a triangle. So it's kindness, patience, and tolerance. Kindness, patience, and tolerance. And just remember to give yourself kindness, patience, and tolerance, and practice that on yourself. Practice it with other people. And it's a great way to work with the law of attraction to have a new experience. Like you were saying, it's really important to start off first off to be kind to ourselves, and to be, do our best to be kind to other people. It's not about being a doormat or not having clear, strong, and appropriate boundaries, but we can begin to give ourselves that gift and maybe just acknowledge when we've done so.
Yeah. And nailed that 100%. I mean, give yourself some credit. We're all just trying to walk each other home, not get too damaged, right? I mean, give yourself credit. It's tough out there, and so I love what you're doing. But okay, Arlene, where can everyone find you? We want to go ahead and get this all this good stuff. Where do we find
Great.
Arlene?
Well, if you Google Arlene Cohen Miller, I'm assuming you'll have it in the footnotes of the video or whatever. That's no one has that name but me, so you can find me anywhere on the internet. My business is Jewel Consultancy, Jewel like the diamond. And you can find me there. I have a lot of great videos about being calm and leadership skills, and a very big blog of, you can find any information, any stuff on there for free. Also, if you mention this show, and you text me at 720-936-2634, or you message me through my website, I will give you a free mini, like 5 or 10 minute soul reading, which is a part of mentoring and a part of just letting you know, like maybe some opportunities that are there for you, and instilling some hope in your life.
I love that. Well, we'll make sure that we mention that on the podcast. We'll make sure your contact information, your website, and all those things that we just mentioned are on there so people can reach right out to you. And it's been wonderful. Thank you so
Thank
much.
you.
I love your energy. I love the vibe that comes out of you, and I know you're helping people, and I think that's super cool.
Thank you so much for having me.
Yay. All right, everybody. That was Arlene Cohn Miller on the What If You Could podcast. Please find her. We'll have all her stuff there, and take care of yourself because it's super important. All right. Thanks, guys. See you later. Thanks again for joining us on another episode of What If You Could podcast. Please subscribe, like, share, and give us any feedback. We'd love to hear it. And remember, if you can dream it, you can do it. See you next time.